5.
Make sure that CCN clip ready. We need it for the second.
4.
Blacks from the Clarendon correspondent coming through now.
3.
All the international stories in the folder. Good to
2.
Newsreaders all set.
Yeah, man, everything set, everything ready.
1.
From the grill to Morant Point, NewsTalk 93 FM has got it covered. Across the 7 seas to the 4 corners of the world, it's all captured on the 93 radar. 93.1, 93.3, 93.5, 93.7 and 93.9 on your FM dial. Real News at 5 starts now.
Good afternoon. Time for the 5 o'clock news roundup here on NewsTalk 93 FM. I'm Errol Lee.
And I'm Andre Bernard.
Coming up in this newscast, Director of Major Organized Crime and Anti-Corruption Agency Mocha arrested and charged for discharging firearm in public thoroughfare.
5 men convicted for lottery scamming in the St. James Circuit Court.
Clarendon Parish Council embarks on collection drive to recoup millions of dollars owed in taxes.
And in news from the region, Guatemalan mayor lynched by angry mob who accused him of ordering an attack on his political rival.
And now the details. Deputy Superintendent Jason Anderson, a director of the Major Organized Crime and Anti-Corruption Agency, MOCA, has been arrested and charged with assault at common law and discharging a firearm within 40 yards of a public thoroughfare. Anderson was arrested by investigators from the Independent Commission of Investigations, INDECOM, and taken before the Spanish Town RM Court today. He was granted bail in the sum of $900,000 with sureties. The 42-year-old MOCA director was ordered to surrender his travel documents to the police and to report to the Greater Portmore Police Station every Friday between 6 o'clock in the morning and 6 in the evening. Attorney at law Peter Champagne, in applying for bail, said the investigation lasted 2 years and Anderson always made himself available to the investigators. According to Champagne, the policeman was not a flight risk and has been a member of the force for more than 20 years. The attorney raised concern about the bail conditions, and the magistrate said he should make written submissions and return to court on November 6, when the matter would be heard. It's alleged that at about midnight on December 19, 2013, 3 men were seen by residents in an abandoned building in Caribbean Estates in Catherine. Residents approached the men, and during a confrontation, Anderson came on the scene and made inquiries. It's alleged he pulled his firearm and pointed it at the men, who allegedly ran from the scene into a motor car and drove off. The car reportedly collided in an embankment. It's further alleged that Anderson fired shots in the air. The complainant made a report to the police, and INDECOM subsequently took over the case.
5 men were last week convicted for lottery scamming when they appeared in the St. James Circuit Court. Convicted under the Law Reform Fraudulent Transactions Special Provisions Act 2013 are Kashiv Horton, a 25-year-old bar operator of Hampton District in Plumtree, St. James. He was fined $250,000 or 2 years imprisonment and given a 3-year prison sentence, which was suspended for 3 years. Anthony Sparks, 27, who is a wood carver of Duckett's Road in Cambridge, St. James, was also fined $250,000 or 2 years imprisonment at hard labor. The third man, 20-year-old Heikel Jr. Reed of Anchovy, St. James, was fined $100,000 or 12 months hard labor and sentenced to 18 months hard labor, which was suspended for 2 years. Then 21-year-old Tajay Javon Box, a laborer of Cornwall Courts in Montego Bay, St. James, pleaded guilty and was fined $200,000 or 2 years at hard labor. The 5th man convicted is Carlton Conrad Brown, a laborer of Olympic Gardens in Kingston. He also pleaded guilty and was fined $250,000 or 2 years imprisonment at hard labor, in addition to a 3-year prison sentence, which was suspended.
The case against 3 JDF soldiers charged with murdering businessman Claude Clark during the 2010 operation in search of Christopher Dudus Coke has again been postponed. The case will now be pushed back until February 8 to allow time for the completion of the West Kingston Commission of Inquiry, which is looking into the May 2010 operation. One of the lawyers for the soldiers, Linton Gordon, requested the adjournment when the matter came before the Home Circuit Court in Kingston today. Gordon, who also represents the Jamaica Defence Force at the inquiry, argued that the court could risk a miscarriage of justice if it went ahead with the trial before the inquiry is completed. The inquiry, which started in December last year, is expected to end in January. Meanwhile, Director of Public Prosecutions Paula Llewellyn said while the Crown was ready to proceed, it would not oppose the request for an adjournment. Lance Corporals Greg Tingling and Adele Buckley and Private Arnold Henry are charged with the murder of Keith Clark. Clark was shot several times inside his home in East Kirtland Heights, St. Andrew, by members of the security forces in May 2010. A post-mortem report indicated he was shot some 20 times, with the majority of the wounds to his back.
Chairman of the Clarendon Parish Council, Cian Barneswell, has joined calls for safety measures along the Bustamante Highway in the parish. Upset residents have been calling for the construction of an overhead bridge for pedestrians. The calls intensified after the death of a 7-year-old schoolgirl, Abigail Wine, who was allegedly hit while crossing the highway. Barneswell told councillors at Thursday's Parish Council month meeting that he is prepared to seek the assistance of the National Works Agency, the NWA, and the Road Safety Unit to help make the busy highway safer. The death of the schoolgirl led to 2 days of protests by upset residents. Wine was a student at the Palmer's Cross Primary and Junior High School.
The Clarendon Parish Council has embarked on a collection drive to recoup millions of dollars owed in taxes. Director of Finance Wayne Brown says over 200 summonses valued at approximately $10 million were served last month on delinquent taxpayers in Clarendon. He says a summons was served on the Sugar Company of Jamaica in a bid to collect $48 million. Brown says Jamalco has committed to paying $20 million by the end of the month.
Meanwhile, Brown says there was a decrease in property tax collection last month. The Parish Council says the 3 most compliant communities in each division are Kellits, Paisley Housing Scheme and New Bowens. These communities will be awarded $200,000 each to be put towards a community project. The area served by the Chapelton Collectorate has been identified as the least compliant in the parish.
You're listening to news on NewsTalk 93 FM. It's 8.5 minutes after 5. Chancellor of the University of the West Indies, Professor Sir George Allain, says the region's massive debt to international agencies is due to the effects of natural disasters. He was speaking at the 7th annual UE Open Campus ceremony for the presentation of graduates. Sir George said the region's debt burden, which is over $40 billion US dollars based on a 2013 report, is due in large part to the battering it has endured due to weather systems. He says one of the features that continues to be emphasized is that this regional debt has not been due in any way to the fiscal profligacy of the part of the region's governments. Much of this has been due to the impact of natural hazards and consequent disasters. He said the recent impact of Tropical Storm Erika on Dominica is a grim reminder of how the region could be devastated by natural disasters. Sir George said natural disasters are a way of life in the region, and the establishment of the Seismic Research Center in Trinidad and Tobago, which monitors and advises the region on seismic activity and volcanoes, assists with disaster preparedness and response.
Educator Dr. Ashburn Pinnock has been formally installed as president of the Michael University College, which is the oldest teacher training institution in the region. Pinnock takes over from Professor Carol Clark, who was appointed interim head for the last academic year, while the board searched for a replacement for Professor Claude Packer. Dr. Pinnock's appointment took effect on September 1. He previously served as principal of the Sam Sharp Teachers College in St. James. Clark, who is the first female to head the institution, is now the Vice President of Academic Affairs. Last week, Dr. Roderick Carl James was installed as Chancellor of the institution. He replaces Professor Errol Miller, who was appointed as Michael's first Chancellor in 2009.
2 local political analysts have come out in support of former Prime Minister P.J. Patterson's strongly worded letter to British Prime Minister David Cameron. Co-convener of Citizens Action for Principle and Integrity, CAPI, Dennis Meadows, says Patterson's letter to Cameron is genuine because he has been consistent on the issue of reparations and his intervention is timely.
Given the benefit of the doubt, he has been consistent on the issue of reparation, and I believe that his intervention is rather timely. Prior to his intervention, one would have thought that we would ask if we had a head of government, because the intervention, in my view, has unwittingly betrayed the efficiency and incompetence of the incumbent. I believe that Cameron should never be allowed to come here and snub us like that. Was rather condescending.
Co-convener of Citizens Action for Principle and Integrity, CAPI, Dennis Meadows. And political commentator Kevin O'Brien Chang says he also agrees with Patterson's letter to Cameron.
And nothing wrong with that. He's a politician, or ex-one. So it is an act of statesmanship because I agree with him morally. He does us one apology. But of course, he made a point about if parliamentary, only those with subtle understanding because of the fact that Cameron didn't speak about the deal and all that. Trying to sell the line that it's a MOU.
Political commentator Kevin O'Brien Chang. And on another matter, Chang says the only government minister who is bold enough to be speaking out on certain issues in the society at the present time is National Security Minister Peter Bunting.
What's interesting is that apart from Mr. Bunting, no other active member of the PNP has opened their mouth. The Prime Minister has showed her usual political brilliance by getting convenient laryngitis. Can't question Portia's common sense. She knows when to shut up. She's smart and giving her credit, whether it's real or not. If it's not real, she knows when to shut up. Unlike Bruce Golding, nobody else has opened their mouth on the PNP side. That's why Mr. Patterson has no choice, because none of the active guys feel they want to risk saying anything because it's so unpopular.
Brian Chang says Bunting seems brave enough to speak out because maybe the government is using him as the fall guy.
Mr. Bunting, well, he's the security minister. He's doing a brave fight, but he's trying to reason people out of something they didn't reason themselves into. He's the only one brave enough to take it on. As I say, not a single other member of the PNP has made any comment I've heard about it. And I guess he's the fall guy because he has to. He's just, Peter, you're the security minister, you go talk.
Political commentator Kevin O'Brien Chang speaking on the evening edition with Garfield Higgins.
In response to poll findings that show Prime Minister Portia Simpson-Miller's favorability rating dipping to unprecedented levels, General Secretary of the People's National Party, the PNP, Paul Burke, says the party is not surprised about this latest revelation. Burke attributed the drop to what he characterized as 8 years of economic challenges and the failure of the party to effectively communicate with the populace. Burke said that analyses show that the party has not been communicating well enough. He says the party understands why Jamaicans would feel that way, since it has been a long and difficult period. 2 poll findings published in a local newspaper yesterday were unfavorable to Simpson-Miller in her 9th year as PNP president and 5th as prime minister. Party insiders said that it was not surprising, as the findings of the Bill Johnson poll were in large measure consistent with surveys that the PNP had commissioned.
Meanwhile, the PNP is to meet with supporters in northeast St. Elizabeth who are upset that incumbent Member of Parliament Raymond Price will not be up for re-election. More than 2,000 Price supporters have sent a petition to PNP President Portia Simpson-Miller expressing concern with the process to select businessman Evan Redmond as Price's replacement. PNP General Secretary Paul Burke says Simpson-Miller has passed the petition on to him. According to Burke, the Secretariat will meet with the supporters after a 3-day candidate preparation retreat scheduled for this week. Last month, one Price supporter obtained a court injunction blocking a selection exercise between Redmond and the incumbent MP. It was withdrawn after Price pulled out of the race, allowing Redmond to be ushered in as the party's candidate. However, Price's supporters say Redmond should have been required to get the approval of at least 2/3 of eligible voters and not just 2/3 of the total number of people who turned out to vote. Meanwhile, Simpson-Miller is this week expected to receive a report from the party's Integrity Commission. Last week, the commission met to determine whether the persons selected to be standard bearers in the upcoming general election are fit and proper.
University of the West Indies UWI lecturer in the Department of Sociology, Psychology and Social Work, Dr. Michael Barnett, has described the 150th anniversary celebration of the Morant Bay Rebellion as powerful and incredible.
Powerful, incredible energy there. I think that this event really commemorated the historic day that yesterday was, the 150th. Yes, I really felt the energy and energized when a group of people come together. And energy is generated and it kind of transforms the whole group.
Barnett emphasizes the importance of how our African ancestors fought for freedom and justice.
My colleague, Dr. Clinton Hockney, put the thing into context with Paul Bogle's efforts for freedom and justice, and also the collective memory that the event represents for Africans in Jamaica, people of African descent. What it means and how much our ancestors really tried in terms of striving for freedom and justice.
UWI lecturer in the Department of Psychology, Sociology and Social Work, Dr. Michael Barnett. Many Jamaicans converged on St. Thomas over the weekend to observe the day 150 years ago when peasants, some born in slavery, walked from Stony Gut to Morant Bay to register their displeasure at the injustice that was being meted out to them. In news from the region, the mayor of a town in western Guatemala has been lynched by a group of locals who accused him of ordering an attack on his political rival. Mayor Basilio Huracan died after being beaten and set alight in Concepcion, Solola province that's yesterday. The residents believed he was behind an earlier attack in which 2 women were killed and 5 other people were injured. Guatemala is one of the most violent countries in Latin America, and gun crime is rampant. However, the lynching of an elected official is unusual.
That's local and regional news. For international news, we join the BBC.
BBC News with Marion Marshall. American military transport aircraft have dropped more than 100 pallets of supplies, including ammunition, grenades and rockets, to Syrian rebels fighting against the Islamic State group. Pentagon officials say C-17 planes dropped the 50 tons of equipment into the northern Syrian province of Hasakah. EU foreign ministers have called for an immediate end to Russian airstrikes in Syria. In a statement, they said the Russian operation could prolong the conflict and undermine attempts to find a political solution. The European Union is to suspend sanctions against Belarus for 4 months, despite concerns about the conduct of Sunday's presidential election. The German foreign minister said the election appeared to have been less repressive than previous ones. The full-time police guard outside Ecuador's embassy in London, where the WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange has taken refuge since 2012, is being stopped on the grounds of cost. Mr. Assange is trying to avoid extradition to Sweden, where he faces an allegation of rape. An Israeli soldier has been stabbed on a bus in Jerusalem in the 4th knife attack in the city on Monday. The attacker was shot dead by the security forces. There's been a day of intense fighting around the Afghan city of Ghazni. A local official told the AFP news agency that Taliban militants had been pushed back by Afghan forces, but there's no independent confirmation. A former governor of a Mexican state has been shot in a restaurant in the state capital, Colima. A local official said Fernando Moreno Peña was hit in the neck and was in a serious but stable condition. Zimbabwe says it will no longer seek to bring charges against the American dentist who killed the country's best-known lion, known as Cecil, causing an international outcry. Zimbabwe's environment minister said Walter Palmer could not be charged with illegal hunting as he had all the necessary documents. BBC News.
And here's a special item of news from the newsroom. Information reaching us is that the Donald Sangster International Airport in Montego Bay has been closed after a fire aboard a Delta Flight 304. The plane was on the runway at the time it caught fire. Commercial Director of Mobay Airports Limited, Sitara Byfield, said the fire started in the hold of the plane among some cargo that was on the flight. We don't know if the fire has been brought under control, but we will keep you posted as the news comes through to us.
Broadcast Jamaican and NewsTalk 93 FM now gear the news in the Jamaican language.
Good evening. My name is Kadeen Marshall and this is the news in the Jamaican language. Some people from America Embassy are the Jamaica Constabulary Force JFF 10 boat Wednesday. The Boston whaler boat them are going to help the country fight against crime on the sea. Louis G. Marino, we are America Ambassador to Jamaica. Peter Bunting, we are the Minister for National Security. And Dr. Carl Williams, we are the Commissioner for Police. I got there the ceremony where I keep at the Police Commissioner Head Office on Old Hope Road. James Golden, we are the Deputy Commissioner for Police. And other top police. And other people from America Embassy, I got there too. Paul Burke, who is the General Secretary for the People National Party, PNP, said the party not surprised to find out a 2 poll result that shows that the Prime Minister ratings a job. Burke said the PM ratings job cost for 8 years. The party not talk to the people that made the country the right way, and the party not talk enough neither. Burke said understand why the Jamaican people feel that way since time hard. 2 poll findings were being in the newspaper yesterday shows that the people them not like all the PM around the country. In March 2006, 11% of people in the country never like how the PM around the country, and that gone up to 51% now. News from the rest of the Caribbean. The Inter-American Commission on Human Rights, IACHR, said them glad that Suriname chose the death penalty in them country. The IACR said them want the rest of the member state them in the Organization for American States, OAS, to choose the death penalty too, or stop it from going now. The Commission to like how Suriname chose the death penalty, the rest of the country them in the Caribbean must follow too to protect people's human rights. Some U.S. Coast Guard to them send back 12 people from Cuba, go back at them yard over the weekend. According to the report, one plane will be in on patrol to one boat south of Marquis Ski in Florida Wednesday gone. The plane called the Coast Guard them for stop the boat. Them find 14 people and send them back to Cuba. Them take off 2 and carry them to hospital for doctor look after them. News from foreign. The police in South Carolina say one 2-year-old boy find one gun in the back of one car when being in her and shoot him grandmother in her back. The police are looking at if they must charge the woman's sister with own the gun. The police said the woman are dead and she and the picnic in her sister car Sunday gone, but them find the .357 revolver gun in a one pouch, take it out and shoot him granny. The police are looking at if the picnic in a one car seat or if the family go against none of the gun law them. My name is Kadeen Marshall and that's the news in the Jamaican language.
Broadcast Jamaican and NewsTalk 93 FM just give the news in the Jamaican language.
The 5 o'clock Sports Roundup is brought to you by NewsTalk 93 FM, life-changing radio.
Good afternoon. I am Mikhail Drama Johns with your 5 o'clock sports roundup here on Newstalk 93 FM, and we begin with football. Today's schoolboy football action saw the Isaflo Manning Cup Group C matches over in St. Catherine being uncontested. This was due to match referees and officials having challenges and other related issues. Reports are that the games, which should have seen Ainswood face Denham Town and Eltham play St. George's College, are scheduled for tomorrow. Meanwhile, in the Isaflo Da Costa Cup competition, Manchester earned a big 5-1 win over the Carteret College. And this evening's KSA Five-a-Side Knockout competition action will have a Surrey Hotel Management face Restaurant of Jamaica, Unicum meet Connex, and Peak Bottling play Ruby's Massey at 6:30 p.m. Then at 7:15 p.m., McKay Security challenge Rainforest, while at 7:30 p.m., Creative Building Finishes have Kickoff versus Tasty, and Alcor Windows and Doors play Fontana. Further afield, according to Reggae Boys head coach Winfred Schaefer, tomorrow's friendly international against host South Korea represents a grand opportunity for the French players to stake a claim for places in the Reggae Boys squad for the upcoming World Cup qualifiers. The German is of the view that if the boys are to qualify for the Russia World Cup finals, these players must put pressure on the senior and influential players in order to keep the team competitive and in tip-top shape. Tomorrow's game will be inside the World Cup Stadium in Seoul, with kickoff set for 6 a.m. Jamaica time. And reports are that no documentary evidence for FIFA's £1.35 million payment to UEFA chief Michel Platini has been produced by him. The entity's ethics committee is looking into the disloyal payment. It was made 9 years after Platini carried out consultation work for football's world governing body president, Sepp Blatter. Both are currently serving 90-day bans while corruption claims are being investigated. Still on football, today's European Championship qualifiers saw Macedonia playing to a 1-1 stalemate versus Belarus, and that should be 0-0 stalemate rather. Ukraine meanwhile got clipped 1-0 by Spain, and England blanked Lithuania 3-0. In other games, Slovakia were the day's biggest winners to score and concede the most goals, with 4 goals for and 2 goals against, playing Luxembourg. For women in the field of football, Jamaica's national under-20 women's squad will seek to qualify once again for the 2015 CONCACAF Women's Under-20 Championships to be held in Honduras this December. Jamaica will participate in the 2015 Women's Under-20 Caribbean Zone final round in Haiti starting this Wednesday, leading up to October 24. Jamaica had previously topped their group in the preliminary round. The delegation from Jamaica departs the island beginning tomorrow at 8 a.m. with a final delegation departing on Wednesday at 9:15 a.m. Moving on to cricket, the West Indies opening game on their tour of Sri Lanka ended in a draw yesterday. The 3-day encounter saw the Windies open at the crease on Friday, ending on 209 runs made from 65.3 overs. Their host then replied with 455 for 7 in 107 overs. The true competition begins on Wednesday when they contest their first of 2 test matches. And England fast bowler Stephen Finn has been ruled out of tomorrow's first test against Pakistan with a stress injury to his left foot. The 26-year-old last week made a good show after bagging 4 wickets in his side's final warm-up versus Pakistan A. In the 5K arena, Saturday's Digicel Night Run saw GC Foster College's Daniel James cop the honors for runners in the women's category, while Kirk Brown won for the males. The event broke the 10,000 mark for participants, with over 10,600 participants taking part, up from 8,052 last year. Meanwhile, in the wheelchair category, Sheldon Cox was first for the males, and Paralympian Sylvia Grant topped the female category. And finally, in tennis, British number 1 Joanna Konta missed out on a place in the main draw of the WTA event in Linz with a 3-set defeat by Czech Klara Kukalova. Konta, at a career-high ranking of 47, led 42 in the final set but lost 6-2, 2-6, 6-4 to the world number 105. It was only Konta's 3rd defeat in 26 matches since Wimbledon and her first to a lower-ranked player since May. And that's it for the 5 o'clock Sports Roundup here on NewsTalk 93 FM. I am Mikhail Drama Johns saying stay tuned for the business news and weather report.
The 5 o'clock Sports Roundup was brought to you by NewsTalk 93 FM, life-changing sports radio.
At 5:29, let's look at some business news here. On the local stock market, beg your pardon, there was a decline today by 6.27 points to close at 106,653. The junior market index advanced by 67.28 to close at 1,229. Overall market activity resulted from trading in 32 stocks, of which 18 advanced, 9 declined, 5 traded firm. Market volume amounted to 4.3 million units, valued at over $14.4 million. Lasco Financial was today's volume leader. Stocks advancing: Carib Cement, Carib Cream, Caribbean Producers, Carreras, D&G, Gleaner, Grace Kennedy, Broilers, Producers Group, Stock Exchange, Lasco Distributors, Lasco Financial, Lasco Manufacturing, Lime, Mayberry, Pan Jamaican Investments, Sagco Real Estate X Fund, Sterling Investments, and stocks declining. 138 Student Living, Blue Power Group, Siboney Group, Derrimon Trading Medical Disposables, NCB, Paramount Trading, Radio Jamaica, and Scotia Group. On the foreign exchange market, the U.S. dollar closed at $119.42. The pound sterling, $183.80. The Canadian, $92.50. And the euro, $136.10. That's business news.
And now we take a look at the weather. There is a broad trough across Jamaica and the Central Caribbean. The trough is expected to remain across the island and the Central Caribbean for the next 3 days. In the forecast for tonight, expect lingering showers across sections of northern and southeastern parishes.
To end the news, the main points. Director of Major Organized Crime and Anti-Corruption Agency arrested and charged for discharging firearm in public.
5 men convicted for lottery scamming in the St. James Circuit Court.
Clarendon Parish Council embarks on collection drive to recoup millions of dollars owed in taxes.
And in regional news, Guatemalan mayor lynched by angry mob who accused him of ordering an attack on his political rival.
And just before we go, an update from Montego Bay, where the airport is still closed because of a fire aboard an aircraft that's on the runway. We will keep you posted in our 6 o'clock headline news on the latest developments. That's the news. I'm Errol Lee.